the winter time, filled with cold days, snow, and the holiday spirit. The wintertime is also an ideal time for rail fans to catch steam locomotives pulling trains. In this program, we will be visiting a railroad on 2 separate weekends to capture a steam locomotive pulling its final trains in a long time. For the next hour or so, watch as Southern Railway 280 Consolidation number 154 pulls some of its last trains of all time before going down for her 1472-day boiler inspection. The railroad that operates her is known as the Three Rivers Rambler. You are about to witness some of the finest moments of steam railroading on this line. This program will be filled with great steam action and much, much more. And with that being said, I present to you Southern Railway 154, The Last Stand. Southern Railway 154 was built by the Schenectady Locomotive Works in 1890 for the East Tennessee, Virginia, and Georgia Railroad. She was originally numbered 466 during her time on the ETV&G. In 1894, the ETV&G merged with the Richmond and Danville Railroad and became the Southern Railway, and 466 was renumbered to 154. 154 served a valiant career on the Southern until she was retired in August of 1953. After her retirement, she was donated to the city of Knoxville and put in Chilhowee Park. The engine would sit there until 2008 when Chilhowee Park donated the locomotive to Gulf and Ohio Railways. The Gulf and Ohio Railways would move the locomotive to their facility in Knoxville, Tennessee. Her restoration to operating condition began later that year. She was to pull tourist trains on the Knoxville-Holston River Railroad or the Three Rivers Rambler tourist excursions. The 154's restoration would be quite daunting as the then 118-year-old locomotive was quite worn out and most of the parts on it were far beyond repair. It took the crews 2 years and countless man-hours to get the locomotive put back together and in operating condition. Finally, in 2010, the engine would move under its own power for the first time since 1953. And not too long after, the locomotive was completely repainted and reassembled and would join her running mate, Washington and Lincolnton 203, the Three Rivers Rambler's other locomotive. Fast forward to present day, 15 years later, and the locomotive has seen considerable use and constant wear. It is a cold winter morning in Knoxville, Tennessee, as Southern Railway 154 backs up into the Three Rivers Depot to connect to the consist to pull passengers for the day. We would visit the Rambler on 2 separate weekends to see 154 in action for some of her last runs before she goes down for her mandated boiler inspection every 1,472 days, or every 15 to 14 years. The Three Rivers Depot at the Commons was built in 2015 by the Rambler, and has been the main loading point for passengers ever since. After the engine couples up to the train, passengers begin to board and the crew begins preparations to get the locomotive ready for the impending trip ahead. With 2 long whistles, The train begins to make its way eastbound out of the station and will begin its trip. Our next few shots are some cool pacing shots we managed to get over the 2 weekends. Our next shot takes place at Nan Drive. The train will pass the 1987-built Thompson Bowling Arena and Neyland Stadium, which was built in 1921. This shot is particularly popular with rail fans as the engineer absolutely lays down on the whistle at this particular shot due to the 4-lane highway crossing. Leaving the shot at Nan Drive, we make our way to the famous Calhoun's Riverside restaurant. The train will make its way past the restaurant, whistling for the crossings there. This is another very famous shot along the railroad. This overpass goes over the railroad, allowing the locomotive to go under you. It is quite an experience having the smoke billow around you as the locomotive blows its whistle for the crossing. At our next shot, we will be leaving downtown Knoxville and will make our way to McWerder Park. This is another well-known shot on the railroad. Here are several run-bys from this location. McWerder Park was founded in honor of Ned McWerder. He was a businessman and farmer, but he was also involved in the Tennessee state government. He was a captain in the Tennessee National Guard from 1947 to 1968. He served as a speaker at the Tennessee House of Representatives from 1973 to 1987. He then finally became governor of Tennessee from 1987 to 1995. McWerder passed away in 2011 and served his state till the very end of his life. A great man and important history to the state of Tennessee for sure. After we pass through McWerder Park, we finally begin to see some nature and wildlife. This is the only stretch where trees is the only thing separating the track from the river. This is by far one of the most scenic parts of the entire railroad. After traversing this stretch, the engine will make its way under the Riverside Drive overpass. The grade here is as steep as 1.5%, but 154 makes very little effort of the grade as she pounds her way up the tracks. We have made our way under the bridge to catch the train coming from a different angle. Just take a listen to that stack talk as 154 pounds her way up the 1.5% grade. We have made our way to the Three Rivers Bridge and managed to catch this awesome distance shot of 154 working up the grade. After a long whistle by the engineer, the engine and its train will traverse the Three Rivers Bridge. Here is where the French Broad River and the Holston River meet, making up the Tennessee River. And here lies the end of the line where the engine and its train will come to a stop. After stopping, the crew will quickly inspect the train to make sure there are no flaws. Then, the diesel locomotive at the end of the consist will pull the train along with 154 back to the Commons Depot. Once the train is ready to go, the engine will make its way back to the Commons Depot along with the train. We hope you enjoyed this program filled with great steam action, as well as 154's last runs before she goes down for her annual boiler inspection. This weekend in particular was not her last operating weekend, as the weekend after this would be her final one. If you want to see a more in-depth documentary, be sure to go over to Stephen Sane Railfan Productions and check out his documentary. But in order to watch the documentary, you must join his channel membership. Please be sure to join his membership and subscribe to him. And with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you wish to see more of my content, go subscribe to my YouTube channel at Matt Dotson Railfan Productions. And as always, Matt Dotson Railfan Productions signing off.